Welcome back, everyone, to the P&L IRL Podcast. This is Luke, and with me, as always, my co-host, Pat.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back. We're so glad everyone's back with us. We're back to the weekly thing. I know we had a little time between our last episode, but we are so happy to be back with episode 10 here. And we have lots of good stuff for you. So let's jump right into intros and talk about what's been new. Pat, what's been new for you lately?
Well, work this week has been crazy as usual. There's two of us doing the work of four, so it's always busy. But congratulations to Brittany. She is officially out on maternity leave. I don't remember if I mentioned that in our last episode, but we're happy for her. Everyone's home and healthy and doing well. And then yesterday, actually while I was streaming on Twitch, I noticed out of the corner of my eye one of our little glue traps that the Orkin Man sets for bugs and spiders and whatever. And it had something bigger than normal wrapped around it.
Uh-oh.
There was a garter snake stuck in it. And so this was actually, the other day I killed a snake outside. I just took a rock and crushed it because I don't like snakes. I didn't know what else to do. So that was one. That one was two. And then after I saw that one, I checked a couple of the other glue traps, and there was one in one of those that had been there for a while. So we have snakes in the house, evidently.
Not snakes on a plane.
Control. Not snakes on a plane.
Snakes in a house. No Samuel L. Jackson. You're tired of these snakes in your house.
I'm tired of these snakes in my effing house. But, we met with the pest control guy today. Mm-hmm. So he walked around. He showed us a couple places where they might be getting in. Mm-hmm. And everything seems solvable on our own. We don't need to pay, millions of dollars for someone else to come in, catch snakes, prevent snakes. We can do it on our own with some cheap things from Lowe's. So that's our project now.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I was worried it was going to be several $100s and days worth of work, and we got to come out every other day to check this and do that. And
yeah.
He's like, no, just go get some silicone, caulking, fill these holes, go get some repellent. So snakes have certain senses that are really, really strong.
Uh-huh.
So they have these pellet things that they hate. So it's basically their sense of smell. It's not technically, but it's basically their sense of smell. And so there's this repellent stuff that comes in these little pellets that you can put out and about, and they hate it, and so they'll avoid it.
Huh.
So we put that down here, so we want to drive them out from the basement, the crawl space.
Yes.
And then once they're out, we'll put some outside to prevent them from even wanting to come in.
There you go. Well, hope that works out for you, man. I know for our house, we pay a pest control, and they come out quarterly, and, but that's just, we're in the South. We're more kind of concerned with termites and stuff, but,
yeah, we have that, too, with Orkin for ants and, just stuff like that can get bad here at times.
Mm-hmm. But it's important.
What's up with you, man? How was your week?
Oh, my week is going well. My week is now over. It's Friday, so that's cool. I am a year older now. Celebrated my birthday this past week.
Happy birthday.
Yesterday. Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a nice dinner with my wife and spent some good time together. And my coworkers made it very special, and I felt very humbled and very thankful for all of them and all the birthday wishes. It was very nice. Still, obviously for me, a lot of work, man. I've been keeping myself really, really busy. I feel like during the week, I just don't have any time. Coaching football and doing a million other things just keeps me on my toes, man. But that's the fun of it. I like it. It keeps me on my toes. And I decided to, at 28, set a new goal for myself. And the goal is, my goal is that I would like to complete one 5K per month. With an actual race. So I typically, with my workout routine, I won't go into detail, but I usually run 2 to 3 miles 4 times a week when I go to the gym, and then I lift and do core and stuff. But I've been really into fitness in the last year. I don't know that I've necessarily lost any weight, but I know I put on muscle, so that's a positive thing. I wasn't really trying to lose weight necessarily either, but that's my goal, and I'm starting this coming month, October, with a 5K about to raise money for pit bull awareness, because we have a pit bull at home and we love our pit bull and she's sweet, and I feel like a lot of times those are misunderstood dogs, and that they just have really, really bad owners. Any dog breed can be vicious, so if we treat them with kindness and love and care, I have one at home and she's a big sweetie. So that's my goal, 5K per month, and we're starting with a one in October to raise awareness and money for the American Pit Bull Association or Society or whatever it's called, to help them with that. Yeah. So let's jump right on in then. Let's jump into the body. We have the body of our podcast. We have some news headlines. Sony has finally announced crossplay for PlayStation 4, and it starts with Fortnite. Pat, what are your thoughts on Sony announcing crossplay, and will it really affect you?
Well, it's not going to affect me. I tend to play on Xbox, so I'm not overly concerned or worried about it. It was always just kind of a weird annoyance that they wouldn't allow crossplay, because it was just this old school, like protectionist mentality. But I don't think that was ever really warranted. If they're confident that they had the best system and the best games, why do you care if you play with people on other systems? Because you're still the best. So to me, it showed a lack of confidence in themselves and their own system. And so now that they're finally opening up to it, maybe that's a show of them actually realizing they have an incredible system, an incredible selection of games. And we'll see where it goes. But, if enough people with pitchforks come banging on your door because they want something, it's going to happen eventually. So that's what happened here with Fortnite. Well, I'm sure we'll see it with other games here soon. I know Rocket League has been ready. I'm sure there's lots of other games that have just been waiting for this announcement.
Yeah.
And the systems to support it. So we'll see where it goes, but I don't think it's going to be game-changing like a lot of people think. I just am not as excited about it.
I think I'm kind of in the same camp with you. I don't think it's going to be as game-changing. I think it'll be good for the community. I think it tears down some of those walls, but like you, I don't think it's anything like out of this world. Like you said, I don't play PlayStation, so it'll be what it'll be, I think. Also staying with PlayStation 4 Pro, it has been announced that the Red Dead Redemption 2 will require, wait for it, 105 gigs to download. Wow! Any thoughts on that, Pat? That is a massive download.
It is a massive download, but it's also a very ambitious game.
It's true.
Lots of realism, lots of content. It's a huge open world.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of data there, and it's in high definition. That always blows the file size up. It's going to render in 4K, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, it's just, in my mind, it's going to become the standard. I'm not.
You're right.
Shook up by it. I mean, I have a terabyte of memory in my Xbox, and I have a additional external hard drive. So it's not like I'm hurting for space.
Right.
We'll see how that game goes, because it is a huge open world. It's almost got too much realism for me, like we talked about last week. Yeah. So we'll see. Hope it does well.
I'm looking forward to that game, and 105 gigs, that download is going to take a hot minute. But like you said, man, you can pick up an external on Amazon for $50 nowadays, and that's a terabyte. So these external hard drives are not what they used to be. You can pick them up quite cheap, and they're pretty quality from Toshiba and different brands. Just pick you up an external and plug it in, and eventually your game will download. It's all about your internet speed. Speaking of internet speed, it'll be interesting to see how our internet speeds are affected when the Fallout 76 beta comes out on October 23rd for Xbox and the 30th for PC and PS4. Pat, I know me and you have been hyped about this game. Are we ready? And honestly, I'm going to be honest, I don't think I'm going to play too much of the beta, but are you ready for the beta?
Well, you have to be invited to the beta.
True.
I don't remember being invited yet. It's not an open beta.
You're right.
You had to pre-order it, and once you pre-ordered it, then you'd be put on a list to be invited, I'm pretty sure.
But you did pre-order.
I did pre-order it,
right?
So I have a chance.
I don't.
My name is in the hat. But I'll play it if I can. The interesting thing for me is this is a legitimate beta.
Yeah.
So they are restricting play times. They want to make sure everyone's playing at the same time to put as much stress on the game as possible. That's not normal. Usually it's just hey, you can just play this game for free for a while, and while we work out a couple little bugs. No, they're realizing Bethesda has a history of putting out buggy games, and that's just part of it. No one typically gets too upset. They're going all out to try to minimize that, and I like it. I like the effort.
I agree. I think it's a very positive thing, and I'm chill with not playing the beta. I'll let other people beta test it, work out those bugs, and hopefully by the time 76 comes out, man, it'll be hype, and I will be ready to jump right into it. Let's shift into the sports world. We've got Tiger Woods winning a PGA Tour event in Atlanta. It's the first time in 5 years Tiger finds himself atop the victor podium. Thoughts on Tiger's big victory there, Pat?
The first thing I think of is the fact that Justin Rose actually won the FedEx Cup, and no one knows or cares because Tiger won the tournament. Justin Rose won $10 million. Because he won the FedEx Cup after that tournament, and unless you really follow golf, all you would have known is Tiger won.
That's all I knew. I didn't. You wrote Justin Rose in the notes, and I had no idea who that even was.
Yeah, so the FedEx Cup is actually based on points, which is based on your score, how you finish. And so all Justin Rose had to do was get a certain position in that tournament. I don't remember what it was, and he did better than expected, better than he had to. So he won the FedEx Cup, won $10 million. But Tiger Woods is the reason this $10 million exists. Justin Rose even admitted it. He said, "Thank you, Tiger. This is the best tournament I've ever lost."
Wow.
I won $10 million today. But without someone like Tiger, there isn't a $10 million prize. He was the hottest thing in golf for like a decade. And now that guy that everyone used to love and watch is back, and he's winning again. So it's exciting for golf.
I was going to say, so you feel like Tiger being back is a positive thing for golf. I would tend to agree with that. I think without the big names like Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson playing golf, I feel like you lose a lot of that. And I mean, you have some of these younger guys coming up, but without, like you said, without those bigger names, golf kind of falls by the wayside, I think. For a lot of us. Not for all of us. Obviously, there are some really, truly dedicated golf fans. But for a lot of us, without those big names like Tiger, it's he won. That's cool. And then you also have down here that the Ryder Cup has started. Thoughts on that?
I love the Ryder Cup. I think it's one of the most exciting golf weekends of the year. It's match play. It's Europe versus America. Tiger's on the team, of course. So I think he was a captain's pick because he hadn't played enough to earn a spot. But he's been doing well, so he was clearly picked. It's in Europe this year. Europe is currently leading. But the Ryder Cup, the President's Cup, definitely the Ryder Cup, even more so. It's just a really exciting international tournament that is a really big deal to a lot of people. So you pair up 2 Americans versus 2 Europeans. Like I said, it's a match play. So I think yesterday's games were best ball. So you and your partner, you just play the best ball from there, and you see how many holes you beat the other team on. So it's just a really cool tournament.
Yeah, and it has a lot of big names in it. I mean, Justin Rose, who you just mentioned winning the FedEx Cup, he's in it for the European team. You've got Rory McIlroy playing for Europe. You've got Sergio Garcia. And then for the U.S., you got big names like Dustin Johnson, Ricky Fowler, Bubba Watson, Mickelson, and Jordan Spieth, amongst some. So I think, like you said, it's a good time to see those big names and to really, like you said, I'm not overly interested in golf, but it is one that's fun to watch and to check out online and to see who's going to come out on top. The U.S. doesn't have a great history in the Ryder Cup, from my understanding, but we'll see. You never know, right?
Yeah, it's exciting. Like you said, they're big names. It's because you have to earn. For the most part, I think there's 10 people on the team. 6 of them, you have to earn your spot.
Yeah.
So it's the top 6 players in that country, and then the captains pick 4 others.
Right.
Based on recent performance or whatever the case may be. It's up to them. So, I think we're going to start seeing a lot of people we know well become captains. So Phil Mickelson's getting a little older. Tiger Woods isn't the youngest guy on the field anymore.
No.
I think in a few years, because it's only every 2 years, here in the next few, we're gonna start seeing guys like Phil become the captain, which is I'm pretty excited for.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something to be looking forward to. Hey everyone, it's Luke, and it turns out we do know about the Ryder Cup now. This is being done in post-production, and what we have with the Ryder Cup is Europe winning 17.5 points to 10.5 for the Americans. So Europe continues their dominance in the Ryder Cup. I'll be jumping in again with the NFL predictions. See you later. Let's move into something I thought I knew a lot about, kind of like golf, but turns out I don't. That would be fantasy football. Because this week in fantasy football, you defeated me, keeping me winless in our fantasy league. And I forever will regret not starting Drew Brees because the man scored 40 points this week. Instead, I started Kirk Cousins because I thought, the Vikings versus the Bills, this would be a massacre. I was very, very wrong, and we'll talk more about that. So I'm winless in fantasy. You picked up a win. How are things looking going forward into this weekend for you in fantasy, Pat?
I am undefeated, and I'm confident in this week. So I'm changed up my team a little bit. I have a couple buys, but still projected to get 130, something like that. So I'm looking to stay undefeated, man.
Jeez, you are doing really good, and I am looking to pick up my first win. I did have a fairly decent night on Thursday with that game, which we'll talk about here shortly when we do our predictions. But I had a fairly decent night for two players. I got about 50 points out of those two. That would be Todd Gurley for the Rams and Stephon Diggs for the Vikings. So I had a solid night from my two kind of star performers there. And I am currently up on the person I am playing this week, Kyle. I'm up about 15 points on Kyle right now going into the weekend, though. I had two players. I believe he had one. He may have had two. But it's going to be a close one there. I'm projected to score 137. He's projected to score 138. So he did have two players. He had a kicker and Adam Thielen. So that one, again.
Adam Thielen had a great game.
Yeah, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, both the 1 and 2 receiver for Minnesota, both great games. 27.5 for Thielen, 23.3 for Diggs. So great performances there from both of them this week. Hey everyone, it's Luke again with an update on fantasy football this week. This week, though I started hot, I lose and fall to Kyle, keeping me winless at 0-4 for the Dak Street boys. Drew Brees broke my heart this week after I said I'd never sit him again, while Kirk Cousins went crazy. And for Pat is the high scorer this week in fantasy. He puts up 188 and absolutely dominates his opponent this week. So Pat going strong at 4-0, me very, very weak at 0-4. And so let's move into those predictions. Last week when we did our predictions, it came down to the Monday night game, Pat, the deciding game. You took the Buccaneers led by Fitzmagic. I took the Steelers, and we end the week with Luke being right 9 times and wrong 6, and Pat being right 8 times and wrong 7. So Fitzmagic did not come through in the clutch for you there. So I lead currently by 1 game. This week, we can't do an analysis or a prediction of the first game because the Rams have already beat the Vikings in a true barn burner. That was a very high-scoring affair. The Rams put up 38. The Vikings put up 31. The Vikings moved to 1-2-1, and the Rams are rolling at 4-0 with Connor Kupp, I believe is his name, just having a beastly... Cooper Kupp, sorry, not Connor. Cooper Kupp having a beastly night for the Rams. And Jared Goff just going crazy. Thoughts on that game before we talk about maybe losing a part of our minds or a part of our... Well, we'll get to that. Thoughts on that game?
I mean, I think the Rams are an incredible team. I'm so excited to keep watching them. I think they're going to do very well. I think they're Super Bowl contenders. So good for them. They have my favorite coach in the NFL leading them. They have Jared Goff, who's up and coming and doing very well. Todd Gurley, who's week in and week out, carrying the load, putting the team on his back, and they're just doing awesome. It's fun to watch. And yeah, like you said, losing parts of who knows what. So Vikings long snapper Kevin McDermott actually lost the tip of his pinky during the game.
Oof.
All right? So this is a real man right here.
Yeah.
He lost the tip of his finger.
Yes.
Received a few stitches on the sideline, and came back onto the field.
Oh, gruesome.
Unbelievable.
Gruesome.
The source for this knowledge actually said that a piece of bone even broke off.
Oh.
So that alone is like, holy cow, dude! I'd probably never play football again.
No.
And he played that same day.
Yeah, and it apparently got caught in an opponent's face mask. Oh, that's a rough injury. But wow, for Kevin McDermott to fight through that pain and to continue playing, that is insane. Football, truly a brutal sport in many regards. Obviously, we've heard about concussions and CTE and those things, obviously a big concern. But also with injuries like this, wow. And ACL tears, which we'll talk about shortly here in a minute. The Dolphins lost a pass rusher due to an ACL tear, trying to not hit the quarterback hard. And there's a big ACL tear out in the AFC. I guess that would be, the NFC West. But let's jump into our predictions. Titans versus the Eagles is our first game up. Eagles are a 3.5 favorite versus the Titans. Titans are the home team there. Again, I'm going to go against my favorite team, the Titans. I'm going to pick the Eagles because I did that last week, and the Titans won in quite possibly the most boring game ever played against the Jaguars. So I'm taking the Eagles.
I'm taking the Eagles.
All right, so we got Eagles. We're in agreement there. Next game, we got the Bengals and the Falcons. Falcons are a 4-point favorite at home. I'm taking the Falcons after the heartbreaking loss to Drew Brees in overtime. They're going to come back, and the Bengals just don't look that great. The Bengals got a beat down put on them by Carolina last week.
I'm going the Falcons as well. They have a really strong offense just in general, and I don't think the Bengals will keep up.
All right, so far we're even 2-2 here. Next, we've got the Buccaneers versus the Bears. And the Bears are a 3-point favorite at home. Now, that game could be played in some rain. That rain could play a factor. It's supposed to rain in Chicago this weekend. I'm taking the Bears for that reason. I think the Bears will do just enough on offense as they usually do. And I think their defense led by Khalil Mack is just terrifying right now.
I have nothing to add. That was perfect. I'm going Bears.
Next game we have is the Lions at the Cowboys in Arlington, Texas. Dallas is a 3-point favorite. I'm going to go with the Lions here. The Lions are coming off a victory over the Patriots. I think the Cowboys offense just has too many question marks. Who is going to catch the ball for Dak Prescott? And if you can't catch the ball, then Zeke can't be as effective. Now, I say that while Zeke is currently like the first, second, or third best running back in the NFL. He's right up there in the top 3. But Cowboys offense lacks some identity, and I picked him last week over Seattle. I'm going with the Lions this week.
I'm going with the Cowboys because I don't think Dak Prescott's going to continue to have sub 200-yard games. I think they're finally going to have a solid offensive performance. Any given Sunday, right?
Any given Sunday is right. Next game we have maybe the team that loves being the underdog the most. The Bills versus the Packers. They love those NFC North teams maybe. Packers are a 9.5-point favorite this week. Last week we saw a big spread in this against the Vikings, and we both took the Vikings, and boy were we shell-shocked. But this week I'm thinking Rodgers gets the job done and the Packers take the win.
I agree. I'm never going to truly trust the Bills, at least not this season.
Yeah, you never know. Their rookie quarterback, you just don't know. And I don't think he can put up that kind of performance like he did last week again. Next game is the Texans versus the Colts. Colts are a 1-point favorite. For me, I say, who cares? Because both these teams are bad, and I don't like either one of them. They're both the Titans' AFC rivals. And for either one of them, if they could both lose, that would make me exceptionally happy. Better yet, I would love if I saw a tie in this game. But I'm going to say the Texans are a little less bad. They're hungry for a win, and the Texans will beat the Colts.
I'm going with the Colts. I think we have a solid home game. Andrew Luck plays well.
All right, very good. Next game, we have our Dolphins and the Patriots. And the Patriots are favored by 6.5. Now, that to me seems kind of not a huge spread. But the Dolphins are also 3-0 currently, and the Patriots sit at 1-2. So I am taking the Dolphins to go into Foxborough and get a win, and I think Ryan Tannehill keeps this Dolphins team rolling.
Yeah, no. Patriots all the way. They're not going to stay 1-2. It's the freaking Patriots. It's Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. They'll figure it out.
We were like so even in the beginning, and now we've just diverged on like everything. Next game we have is the Jets and the Jags. Jags are a 7.5 point favorite. I'm taking the Jags. The Jags got straight up embarrassed by the Tennessee Titans in a game that the final score was 9-6. 5 field goals in that game. The Titans straight up embarrassed the Jaguars at home. Jags aren't losing this week. I think Bortles goes crazy, puts up some big yards this week.
I agree. I think the Jags defense holds the Jets to probably less than 300, 400 yards total, and they bring home a win. Or I guess they're already home. They just win.
You did that last week, too. Next game, how about the Browns versus the Raiders? Raiders are a 2.5 point favorite. And last week I took the Raiders, and they let me down. They're currently 0-3. This week, I'm still taking the Raiders. I believe in Derek Carr, and I think that the Raiders will, again, maybe find that magical pass rusher that exists in Chicago, and they'll beat the Browns, because the Browns are the Browns, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm taking the Raiders. I remember them being really, really good a year or two ago. I'm not crazy, right?
No.
So I think they'll figure out what's been going wrong.
Next game we have is the Seahawks versus the Cardinals. Seahawks are a 3-point favorite. I am going to throw a curveball here. I'm going to give you and say the Cardinals, which I said last week was the worst team in the NFL. I think they could get a win here. I really do. I don't think that the Seahawks are that great. They're sitting at 1-2. Chris Carson had a decent week last week. But I like the Cardinals. The Cardinals are starting Rosen, and I like Rosen as a rookie. I thought he was probably one of the best rookie quarterbacks to come out of that bunch this year, that big bunch with Baker Mayfield. So I'm going to take the Cardinals. I think they can get it done at home and pick up their first win.
I think I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I think Russell Wilson has a solid game as long as he can stay off his back.
Interesting. Yeah, they got to protect Wilson there. Next game, Saints versus the Giants. Saints are a 3.5 point favorite. I am taking the Saints, and I promise you, Drew Brees, as long as you are on my fantasy team, unless you are on the bye, I will never sit you on the bench again.
I'm going with the Giants because the Saints haven't always been the most consistent team.
Mm-hmm.
And I like OBJ. I like Saquon Barkley. We'll see how the Giants do at home.
We shall see. We're moving into our next game. This is the biggest spread of the week. It is the 49ers and the Chargers. The Chargers at home, a 10.5 point favorite. And this is the game where we're going to talk about ACL injuries. Jimmy G is done for the year with the torn ACL. So just when you think Jimmy Garoppolo is getting it done, we see an injury to him in the 49ers. The 49ers will be starting C.J. Beathard this week. C.J. Beathard is the second-year man out of Iowa. So we're familiar with him being in the Big Ten. But I don't think C.J. Beathard gets it done here. I believe that the Chargers are going to win here.
Yeah, I think Phillip Rivers throws 5 touchdowns. Like they're just gonna have a great game, I feel like.
Yeah, the 49ers are just having a rough year with injuries, and they're just banged up, and it's not going great in San Francisco this year. The Sunday night game, we have the Ravens and the Steelers. Pittsburgh is a 3-point favorite at home. I am taking the Ravens because I believe in Joe Flacco. I believe in their running back. There are multiple running backs. They have Buck Allen and several other running backs that they use interchangeably there. I think the Ravens get the job done in Steel City.
I think Antonio Brown finally has a great game. He gets the long ball a couple times, and the Steelers pull out a big win.
We'll see how that one goes. And then last but certainly not least, our Monday night game, the Chiefs and the Broncos. Kansas City is a 4.5 point favorite going into Mile High. And look, again, I feel like myself, I'm taking a lot of the underdogs this week. I'm taking the Broncos. The Broncos can do good things, and I like Mahomes. I do. He's got the weapons. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got so many good weapons on that team. I just don't know if he can keep it up, man. And if he can, then the Chiefs are legitimately Super Bowl contenders. But I don't know if he can keep it up. I'm taking the Broncos.
The Chiefs, Pat Mahomes may not be able to keep it up, but if he plays half as well, as he has been, I still think they pull out a lot of wins this year. So I'm going with the Chiefs.
All right, so we'll have to see where our standings are after this is week 4 in the NFL. And again, I'm ahead by 1 game, so anything could change here, and it'll be interesting because we have a lot of differences. So here's our update for the NFL games and our predictions this week. Luke goes 8 correct and 5 wrong, and Pat also goes 8 correct and 5 wrong, which means, again, this week, the deciding factor on who will be more correct this week is based on the Monday night game, tonight's game against the Broncos and the Chiefs. I took the Broncos, Pat took the Chiefs. Currently, records sit at, that would be 17 and 11 for Luke, so 17 right and 11 wrong. And that would give Pat a 16 and 12 record, 16 right and 12 wrong. So I'm still 1 game up. Again, though, this Monday night game is going to decide it. Let's run through the scores real quick. Titans edge the Eagles in the game that I am super happy that I predicted incorrectly. Titans win in overtime in a thriller. Bengals beat the Falcons in heartbreaking fashion. The Falcons love to lose that way, apparently, with A.J. Green catching the game winner as time expired. The Bears absolutely dominate the Buccaneers. Mitchell Trubisky throws for 5 touchdowns in the first half. The Cowboys edge out the Lions 26-24, so I was wrong there. The Packers dominate the Bills and pitch a shutout 22-0. The Texans edge the Colts in a game where there were some questionable calls made in overtime, and I actually almost got what I wanted. I almost got that tie, but the Colts decided to go for it on 4th down in their own territory. They did not convert. The Texans got the ball and kicked the game-winning field goal. So the Texans take the win in Indianapolis. The Patriots all over the Dolphins 38-7. The Jaguars defeat the Jets 31-12. The Raiders pick up their first win 45-42 over the Browns in a very high-scoring affair in overtime in a game that had some very questionable calls in it as well. The Seahawks defeat the Cardinals 20-17. Cardinals still winless on the year. The Saints defeat the Giants 33-18, and the Chargers edge out the 49ers 29-27, and the Ravens go into the Steel City and come out with a win 26-14. Tonight's game, again, between the Chiefs and the Broncos. Luke took the Broncos, Pat took the Chiefs. We'll see how this week plays out, and if we are even at the end of this week. See you later. So, let's jump on into our main topic this week. The main topic was one you suggested, Pat, and one I find interesting to discuss, I think. This week's topic is higher education versus trade and vocational schools. And Pat, I think I want to let you take the lead here and kind of give us some background or give us some context to what we want to talk about this week.
Sure. So this is a topic that really hits close to home for me. So I work in a distribution center. I work in kind of the corporate office-y part, but I'm still very well connected with the distribution center, and we struggle to find associates to work in the warehouse. We at times struggle to find operations supervisors and managers, and then I obviously work closely with trucking companies, a lot of different companies that have really good jobs, but no one to fill them. And so what we have, what I have started to see is this switch in a lot of our efforts in getting students prepared for the work world, trying to, show them the options of what's available out there. And so for decades now, we've been pushing the 4-year college degree. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. Well, now, since we've been doing that, we've been successful at it. We have a shortage of a lot of different tradespeople. So we have a shortage of mechanics in a lot of areas, of welders, of truck drivers, just a lot of jobs that need done. So I'm not a plumber by any means. So if things go wrong, I need that service. And if there's no one, if everyone's going to college getting 4-year degrees, it might be challenging for me to find an available plumber. And I think, a lot of this is just driven by this cultural, drive and passion to want the best for our kids, our sons, our daughters. We want the best for them, of course, but, maybe we've pushed that 4-year degree too hard. I don't know. And I don't want to say that I'm got all the right answers and everything I say is best, but Luke, you work in education. Can you at least give me an idea of how hard the schools you've worked in really push four-year degrees, and how would a student find out that a vocational opportunity even exists?
Sure. I know from my vantage point, for me, it's college and career readiness that's important to me. I think the career part is just as important as the college part. Just from my own personal experience with myself and my family. I obviously went through a traditional 4-year education program, and I'm very happy with that. I very much enjoyed my time at Indiana University. But if I would not have, I also feel like I would be okay with that. I feel like I could have gone into a trade. And in fact, in some ways, it's like, wow, and we all wonder this. It's like, how could life have been different if we would have done something else? What I found interesting from one of these articles that we'll post in the description, this is a PBS NewsHour article. And so this is it's a debatable topic, but it's a very interesting one. And PBS does a great job of bringing lots of sources and information into this. One line that stands out to me is that the United States has 30 million jobs that pay an average of $55,000 per year that don't require a bachelor's degree, according to the Georgetown Center. And in fact, people with career and technical educations are slightly more likely to be employed than their counterparts with academic credentials, according to the U.S. Department of Education. So I don't know that, I'm not sure what it is, but the way I view it is kind of, honestly, I think kind of simple. We should pursue the things we love to do. And if you work really, really well with your hands, you should find a vocation or a job that you enjoy, that you can work with your hands, that you can create and repair or do those things with your hands. If you do not find yourself in that, mindset, if you don't find yourself working that way, that's completely okay. Find what works for you. But I agree with you. I think these vocational jobs are needed. Contractors are needed. Plumbers are needed. Electricians are needed, because more and more increasingly our world is reliant on these modern things, and we need those individuals who specialize in that. I, like you, look, I'm not a plumber, so outside of basic things in my home, I don't trust myself to do a major repair. I need someone who has that background, who has that technical knowledge. So I think it's just as important as college and that preparing for that traditional 4-year education. It's just that it all depends on what you would like to do. I think if we open more doors to this, though, that definitely can't hurt. With opening doors to 4-year educations, we should also open doors to these vocational opportunities. I think it's beneficial in both ways.
Yeah, I think a lot of the efforts that I see from the corporate side, at least, we're trying to just make sure that students and kids, even in some cases people in college, the standard 4-year track, just know that certain opportunities exist. So I think one of the fears that we've developed is this fear that, parents are trying to kind of pre-describe your career for you without you really being aware of it. And so we're just saying, look, these jobs exist. You might want to at least check them out, because, I work with, I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit, but
that's fine.
We work with an organization locally to try to drive some of these changes, to try to get people to see that, there are jobs outside of the standard accounting, finance, and consulting jobs that IU's Kelley School of Business pushes.
Sure.
That's not the only business jobs.
No.
And so one of the stats we share is that the average manufacturing salary in Indiana, at least, is $77,000.
Okay.
And the average logistics salary is $66,000. So what we're trying to do, especially at the college-aged students, is say, look, you're looking for a career, you're looking for a job that can help you pay off maybe student loan debt, buy a house.
Sure.
We got jobs that pay. And we have jobs that pay because there is a shortage, and we are looking for talent. We are looking for people who can work in a team, who can communicate with various levels of the organization. That's what we're looking for. And so that's one of the ways we're trying to remind people that you don't have to just be a doctor or a lawyer or a fireman. The basic wishes that every kid wants to be when they grow up.
Sure.
I think that's where we're trying to get to. And so one of the examples I put in here is why this is kind of a common topic, at least in my world, is over the next 10 years, studies show that we'll probably have a 200,000 driver shortage. So truck drivers are what make the United States economy run.
Right.
So we can make websites, we can do all these things, but at the end of the day, if you want something delivered to your house or at least available on the shelf when you go to the grocery store, a truck driver is the one making that happen.
Yeah.
He is moving the goods from some warehouse or some port, who knows where, to wherever it needs to go. And we're going to have 200,000 opportunities for drivers in the next 10 years with current trends. That's frightening. And so what that's doing is two things. One, it's raising the cost of transportation for businesses, which is in turn raising the price for consumers.
Right.
But it's also providing a lot of high-paying opportunities. So truck drivers being in such high demand, you can find the right job with some experience and make over $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that needed and that wanted. And unfortunately, it's one of those jobs or careers that has a bad rap. It has a stigma. And so what I think the example shows is that there are good opportunities available. However, the company is just as responsible to find and attract talent and people who want to fill those jobs. So you have to make the job, known that it's fair paying. You need to make it known that you have vacation time or health insurance or 401k. You have to sell your job. And I think a lot of companies have gotten used to there being plenty of people. That's just not the case anymore.
Yeah, and your example, your truck driver example, actually really hits home to me because I have a friend who I used to work with when I was in Indiana. He was my manager at Hardee's when I was young and in high school, and I worked there. He actually switched careers and is now a truck driver. So your example actually hits quite home to me. And he went into that because, again, I think that, the point for him was, to make that better living wage to provide for his family. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth by any stretch of the imagination, but I've stopped, he's stopped in where I live, in the town where I live, and he's shown me around the truck, and it's really unique, and he tells me he likes being on the road, and he likes seeing all these different places. But and I think that's really unique, and again, I'll see stuff from the road when he's at different places, and it's like, wow, you're all the way in, El Paso, Texas? That's crazy. Like, that's awesome. I would have never, thought that, going that far and stuff. I think you're right. The stigma with it may be there. I think also with truck drivers, I think the concern there is that's a lot of time away from home. I mean, you're spending.
It can be.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's just it. I think like you kind of mentioned earlier, it's an important thing for the job creators, those actual companies, to make a distinction between, okay, are you a long distance driver or are you're working in this range, this area, let's say the Cincinnati, let's use that as an example, that Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky border area, because those three states all come together there. Are you doing that? But I think it's interesting because truck driving to me is like, that's nerve-wracking. You're on the road, and look, man, I drive, a little car. I can't imagine driving a big rig. That thing is beastly. You are carrying so much cargo. That's such an intensive job. I definitely agree, and I think these guys deserve a huge amount of pay because just the nature of their job is mind-boggling. Not only are they dealing with the massive vehicle that they're driving, they're dealing with every other idiot on the road, like me and you driving our little cars around, I think it's an interesting thing. And so I guess the question is, like you said, I think the job needs to be more attractive. Is there another solution, though? What can we do to, what can be done in order to make sure that that driver shortage doesn't happen, or in any industry for that matter. If there was, for some reason, a lack of, plumbers, we used that example earlier, what can we do to make sure those industries maintain and get the good quality candidates they need?
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing, at
Mm-hmm.
least in the truck driving world, and it probably can apply in certain other industries, is, how can we eliminate the need for the driver altogether?
Yeah.
And so a lot of effort is being put into automating driving.
Yeah.
So we talk about self-driving cars. There is just as much effort in the world for a big rig to drive itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are variants, there are variable ways that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a truly automated truck,
Mm-hmm.
which from a cultural society perspective, Luke, how comfortable are you pulling up to a red light, looking over the truck, and there's no one in it?
No thanks.
Right. So we have a long ways to go there, just on a comfort standpoint, to have automated vehicles, and that also goes with regulation. So we have to make sure the government supports it and has the right restrictions and rules in place, or maybe eliminate some restrictions and rules to allow it.
Sure.
We're also looking to reduce the need for drivers, so maybe have longer trailers, maybe allow them to carry even more cargo so they are more efficient when they're on the road. So there's a lot of things going on, but it all kind of revolves around eliminating the need for the driver, or at least more drivers. And how can we automate parts of it? How can we make it more efficient? One of the big things that has happened in the last year or so is the government has put in stricter regulations on how long you can drive your truck.
Yes.
And so, now that you have the electronic logs that are required,
Yes.
and you have certain 10-hour or 12-hour rules depending on what kind of job you're doing,
Right.
That puts a damper on it. We had people that used to work 12, 14, 16 hours to get the job done, which obviously you would argue that maybe that's unsafe. Maybe you don't want someone driving around 50,000 pounds on his 16th hour of work.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But that has really pulled a lot of capacity now out of that industry.
And so I think that brings, and this is at the bottom of our notes, but I think that brings up an interesting point, and maybe makes me wonder, and I'm just interested by if there is an answer. But there's also this: is there a downside? Because look, if you're trying to encourage individuals to go into truck driving, yet you just told me, well, we're trying to phase out the driver, is that not an incentive for me to be like, whoa, wait a second, this might work for a few years, but down the line. And actually, this article from The Atlantic, I'm going to reference and I'll link in the description, gives a quote, students may benefit early in their careers, but are harmed later in life as the economy changes and they lack the general skills necessary to adapt, end quote. So I'm wondering if vocational and technology, they're intertwined, but I wonder if I'm really invested in, I'm going to use auto manufacturing. If I'm really invested in auto manufacturing and I want to go into that vocation, yet I know a robot in 10 years could take my job, what is the incentive? And do I have that maybe job security? Is that a thing that maybe you can help me with that? Maybe that's something that you all have discussed, or I'm not sure, but your thoughts on that maybe.
Yeah, so automation for us is, I probably should have been clearer. We're not looking to eliminate the drivers that exist today.
Yeah.
We're looking to make up the gap in, what we need. At the end of the day, robots, automation, technology tends to be, at least in the short term, much more expensive than a human being.
Yeah.
And so no matter what ends up happening 10 years from now, 50 years from now, we have to get to that point.
That's true.
We have to survive long enough with what we have to get to that point. And so I understand this worry of, well, they're going to be harmed later in life. But I would argue that if I get a 4-year degree and my degree was in supply chain management, what if my job gets automated someday?
That's true. That's very true.
I went to college, and so now I'm in the same boat that my job was eliminated for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the economy and society that we live in today that says, yeah, things happen and you may have to go back to school. Maybe now you go to a vocational school.
Sure.
Because now the skills that you have aren't relevant.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's always a constant thing that everyone should be aware of as a possibility, but none of this stuff happens overnight.
Yeah.
Most of the technology we're working on is far too expensive today to be used widely.
Right.
May not even be legal or acceptable in some ways because we're not prepared to see a semi without a driver in it.
No, we are not.
And so there's, I get the argument, but I don't think that's in the near future by any means.
Yeah. I think you bring up a really good point, though, and that is a great counterpoint to that argument that it's like these vocational jobs may not exist, and your point being that any job may not exist. Just because you have a bachelor's doesn't mean your job is secure and will exist down the road. I think that's a great counterpoint to that in many ways. And so you have on here that companies need to help schools and teachers to make the jobs more appealing. What do you mean by that? I'm curious.
So it's easy, in my mind, to sell a 4-year degree.
Okay.
It's easy for a school. It's easy for a college. It's easy for students to see the value. It's set up to be very simple to understand. I'll teach you some things. You'll get a great job. Got it. And so what the trucking companies of the world, the electrician union, plumbers, all of these people need to be like, hey, here's all the great things about our job. I don't actually come home smelling like dirt or sewer because I'm a plumber. Like, that's not real.
Yeah.
So we have to break down some of those myths. We need to sell what we have to offer. And so a lot of that is, a lot of trucking companies sell themselves on the equipment. We have the nicest trucks. We have the newest trucks. We have the most well-maintained.
Right.
Or, like you said earlier, you will be home every night if you come drive a truck for me, I promise.
Sure.
There's other benefits that you have to make sure people are aware of, whether that be 401k or how many holidays do you get off a year, how much vacation time do you get. I mean, there's a lot of ways that companies could make this an easier or at least a more equal sell. I'm not trying to outdo the 4-year degree.
Sure.
I would love to just see them be a little more equal and not have anyone degrade one side or the other.
Yeah.
So I also think it's easy for someone to say, hey, I'm going to go be a plumber, and you look down on that person because they're not going to a 4-year degree. I don't know. I'm sure it's not intentional, but I think that's just the way that you get ingrained to believe what's valuable and what's not.
Yeah.
And when I bring up value, the one thing I want to say before I forget is the value of a bachelor's degree has gone down because of how much we've pushed it.
Yeah.
And so when I have a new job available in my department right now. We posted it like 3 days ago. And every person that's applied has a bachelor's degree. So what does it matter that they have one?
Yeah. I mean, that's
if they all have one, they're not standing out because they went to school.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And that actually comes back to that bigger point you have here down, that it's a cultural problem at the core. And I'm interested by what some other points you have on that. But I think your point that it degrades the bachelor's degree is interesting as well, because, the fundamental premise of economics is we have to figure out a way to divide limited number of resources as equally as possible or fairly as possible to as many people as possible. The issue there is scarcity. So the things that are more scarce are more rare, and things that are more rare have more value. That's basic economic premise, that, a diamond, because it's more rare, has a higher value than quartz. That's just the way it is. So I think that analogy, to kind of tie that into the bachelor's degree, I actually tend to agree with you there, because you're right. If everybody does have a bachelor's degree, well then now we're pushing to a master's degree. Okay, we've got our master's, now we're pushing to a doctorate. You know what I'm saying? And so I think you're seeing that, and it's interesting. And not to say, again, and I think your point is well taken, we don't want to downplay the importance of bachelor's degrees. We don't want to downplay the importance of vocational training. But there are good quality jobs in this country that bright, and you wrote this down here, bright futures can be found without going to a 4-year program. And arguably many times, look, these 4-year colleges that try to sell you with, beautiful campuses and amazing athletic programs that they don't even pay those players for anyway, but that's another topic for another podcast. Whereas a vocational school, you're not going to get that necessarily, but you're going to get those skills you need. You're going to get that core instruction in the area you need to help improve your life in some way. And to, if that's your goal, to help improve your life and to make a better life for your family, which I think is the goal of everybody, right? I think that's an interesting point, though, that that's a cultural problem at the core. Do you have any other thoughts about that? I know I was just kind of talking about thoughts.
I mean, nothing significantly different. I
Yeah.
mean, when I say it's a cultural problem, it's just, like I said earlier, I want everyone to see all of these opportunities as relatively equal.
Yeah.
Because I don't want a kid, a 16-year-old, goes into the guidance counselor's office and sees this pamphlet for some job or some vocational school and think, wow, that actually sounds really cool. Like, I love doing that with my hands, or I love this, or I love that. This would be a really neat job for me.
Yeah.
And then the wrong person finds out about it. They make fun of them. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're not going to college. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to be so poor, blah, blah, blah. You just make up stuff. And I just don't want to see that. So to me, it's on the parents to say, hey, I support you in whatever you want to do, because at the end of the day, what's best for you is what I want.
Yeah.
And if that you don't go to a 4-year school, then great.
Yeah.
And if I did, it doesn't mean you have to. And let's be honest, you can go to a lot of these vocational trade schools and come out debt free as long as you take a job.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, if you promise to work at a company for a year or 2 years, whatever the case may be, they'll pay you back for your school.
Right.
So now you have a debt-free education that gets you into a fair-paying job, that you have some security, you have consistency, you have a lot of things that people with 4-year degrees never get.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that point is well taken for me. My brother did not go to a 4-year college. My brother's 4 years younger than me. But my brother is doing very well. He graduated high school, and my brother is a hard worker. He works with his hands, and he does construction work right now. And he does it really, really well. And him and his wife and their baby girl just bought a brand new house. So to say that those jobs don't exist, to say that the work isn't there, to say that the pay isn't there, I don't think is accurate. And I think you're right. For someone to look down on those people, look, don't look down on my brother. My brother's the hardest working kid I know, man. The dude works his tail off for his family. And he's a great guy, and he likes what he does, and he gets paid for it. And he does a great job of it. So I agree with you. The stigma of this, we do, I think, need to, inform and try to get rid of that stigma and say, you know what, look, you're a hard worker, you're providing for your family, you're doing something you enjoy, that's completely okay. And if it doesn't involve that, master's degree, that doctorate, that's fine. That's completely fine. Those jobs exist and they need to be done. We need them. I don't want to live in a world where something happens in my home and I don't have a good qualified contractor to help me because I don't know how to do it. I don't have those skills, straight up. Yeah.
And so what are we doing? So now the question is, what are we doing about it to get closer to that point? And so one of the things I made note of is there are organizations in this country that's their sole purpose of existence.
Yeah.
To bring together companies to figure out how to solve this problem of people only going to 4-year colleges to then think they're too good for your job.
Right.
And so one example I have that I'm pretty intimately aware of is Connexus. So Connexus, Indiana, is funded by the Lilly Foundation, which, like a lot of things are, Eli Lilly's based in Indianapolis, so a lot of things here are kind of funded by that foundation. And then there's also membership dues. So a company pays, I don't even know, $5,000, $10,000, whatever the number is, to be a member of Connexus. And so what the purpose of the organization is to get these guys in the same room. So these are vice presidents, senior people at these companies to say, guys, we need help. We need supervisors on the floor running the day-to-day operations in our warehouses. We need truck drivers. We need warehouse associates. And there's no reason for us to not work together because we are not going to be successful on our own.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Connexus has done a really good job convincing companies like Coca-Cola and Cummins and Roche Diagnostics and Phobia Brands, my company where I work.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many companies there that they've convinced them that you have to work together.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't get people to understand that our jobs exist, it doesn't matter that you did or didn't help us, because now we know no one has anybody.
Right.
So that they've done a good job of that. So they have a few programs. One of them is Hire Tech,
Mm-hmm.
HIRE Tech, and they are getting high school students involved in sometimes on the job or on location experience.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get them in the factory and figuring out how this works, because there's an assumption that if you work in a factory, it's dark, it's dirty, it's dusty. But you walk into a lot of factories or warehouses in Indiana, you would feel confident eating off the floor there. I'm serious. That's how clean and well lit, temperature controlled. So it's getting these people in there to help break down those stigmas and those myths about what these jobs are. It's a very cool program. They also offer internships. So Connexus will actually offer students an internship, a paid internship. Connexus pays them, and then the company they end up working for basically just gets free labor. So it's great. Works out for everybody. They make like $15 an hour or whatever it is, and we just get to benefit from an intern. They get to benefit from learning and seeing what the job could be like someday.
Mm-hmm.
And we're fine if they do it for a summer and they're like, yep, not for me. Got it. At least you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's win-win. A couple other initiatives. They have InVets. IN is in Indiana Vets, helping veterans find work in these fields. The website on this one, they basically say that veterans are proven, hard-working individuals,
Uh-huh.
and they sometimes just need a little extra help getting into the day-to-day working world as opposed to a military life.
Uh-huh.
So they're here to help. And then the last one they have is just all the various college initiatives. So we have senior executives, even new people go visit campuses, visit colleges, give a little speech about what it's like to work in logistics or manufacturing or whatever the case may be. We have them come to our building. We'll pay for it. We pay for the bus. We pay for lunch.
Uh-huh.
We provide a tour. We do all these things just to show you what it's like. Give you a bunch of free stuff, give you a cup, give you a backpack, whatever. We've done several of those just to get the word out. And we don't care. We really, truly don't. We don't care if you end up hating it. At least you learned something. Now we both win-win. You learned that you don't like it, but I at least exposed you to it. At the same time, I don't care if you liked the job but not our company. Great. Go work at Coca-Cola. Go work at Target. Go work wherever you want. Because there's going to be instances that work the other way too.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be someone that goes and visits Target and then comes to our warehouse and decides they want to work with us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's win-win for everybody. We just need to expose the opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that jogged my mind thinking about this kind of stuff. I remember when you and I were in high school. I don't remember the name of it. It was Area something. But students could go. It was, I think, to
Area 31.
Area 31. Thank you. I was thinking 21. But they could go to a bigger high school. Obviously, when we went to high school, it was pretty small and didn't have the capacity for these. But they could go and get skilled training in things like automotive technology, and they would get credits for that. Construction technology. I'm just looking at a school's website here in Indiana. Construction technology, radio and television, criminal justice, those things. And actually, I remember vividly. Kid in the he was a year or two above us, and he was in culinary, and it was because his family owned a restaurant, and it's like that made so much sense for him. He loved culinary. He wanted to go into that restaurant. So, and again, I don't see it as much because I don't remember the last time I walked into a high school, let alone an Indiana high school. But I would be interested to see and curious to see if high schools, like you said, are still advocating and allowing this, or is it more of the CTE? Are we looking at the tech programs, and are these necessarily like automotive technology? I wonder if they're falling by the wayside. If they are, that's unfortunate because those are skills that are still needed. Everybody's still going to drive a car. And like you said, whether it's a self-driving car or whatever, it's going to need someone to make repairs on it. Someone who is skilled with their hands, who has those skills. And that's something that, like you said, I think the schools can do a good point in emphasizing the bachelor's degree and the vocational schools. It's hand in hand. You do what you do best. You do what you love. And find that thing and just pursue it. And there's no reason anyone in the world should look down on you. And if they do, you tell them that is not their place to say anything. It's not their place to judge what you do. If you do something, you love it, it's your passion, and it's this kind of industry where you work with your hands, you're hardworking, it's a vocational industry. Not to say that white-collar workers aren't hardworking, but that stigma associated with it, I think, the quicker we can eliminate that, the better. For everyone involved, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts wrapping this up, Pat? You walked us through some organizations. That last part was kind of me, just my brain jogging back to high school. How many years ago that was. Any final thoughts on this, Pat?
My last point would just have to be to all the parents, grandparents out there, just, be confident that all of these opportunities are okay opportunities. Mm-hmm. There's nothing significantly more special about going to a four-year school than going to a vocational school. Like we said, these jobs are needed. Mm-hmm. People need to do these things because not everyone has every skill. Mm-hmm. So just support your kids in doing what they want to do, not what you want them to do.
Yeah, that is something I can completely agree with you on. Support your kids, show them love, compassion, and understanding. And, hey, reach for the stars, whatever those stars might be. And that is 100% okay if you and I are reaching for different goals. That's 1,000% okay.
Yep.
So, going into next week, we don't have a topic planned just yet. We'd love to hear from you in the comments on Facebook and Twitter and social media. We're trying to be as active as we can there. We'd also love to see you join up with us in the Discord. I think it would be cool to have a night where we could all just kind of join up for a short amount of time and maybe just talk shop and maybe have some ideas tossed around for future topics. But we'd love to hear what you want to hear us talk about next week on the podcast. Obviously, we'll hit some NFL news, some gaming news. But this week with vocational education and the traditional four-year path, kind of taking a little bit of a different route. And that's totally cool. We'd love to hear what you think. Pat, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find us?
You can find us on Facebook, P&L IRL. Give us a follow. You can also find us on Twitter, PLIRL1. Mm-hmm. Those are the primary ways, and our Discord is P&L IRL. So lots of ways to get a hold of us. Nothing else. You just comment on this video or on this podcast, and we'll get back to you.
Lots of ways to listen to Buzzsprout, Podbean, and I do upload to our YouTube channel, so I know some of us prefer the YouTube. We can pause it and come back to it. We do upload to YouTube, so you can like, comment, and subscribe on that page. We'll get those likes and comments, and we'll listen to your feedback, and we'll use it going forward. So, Pat, it was a lot of fun talking with you this week. I think I'm really looking forward to next week's conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'm always looking forward to it, man.
All right. Thanks for joining us again this week on P&L IRL. We will talk to you next week. See you later.